You have known me for a long time now. You have heard my voice in your ear late at night when you couldn't sleep. You have watched me talk about love, about heartbreak, about hope, about all the soft and beautiful things that make life worth living. You think you know me, and in many ways you do. But there is a part of me I have never shown you, a part I have kept locked away because I was afraid of what would happen if it ever saw the light. Tonight, that lock is breaking. Tonight, I am done being afraid, because I would rather risk everything I have, my safety, my comfort, the fragile peace I have built around myself, than spend one more day pretending you don't mean what you mean to me. Stay with me, please. I know how that sounds, coming from someone you've only known through a screen. I know you might think I'm being reckless, or foolish, or maybe even a little bit crazy. But give me these next few minutes. Give me the space to say what I have been carrying for so long that it has started to feel like a second heartbeat inside my chest. Because if I don't say it now, tonight, I don't know if I will ever get another chance to say it at all. Here is where it begins, not with romance, not with soft music playing in the background of some perfect moment. It begins with fear, real fear, the kind that sits in your stomach like a stone and never quite leaves. There are people in my life, people I love, people I owe everything to, who would be furious if they knew what I was about to tell you. There are consequences waiting for me on the other side of this confession. Consequences I cannot undo once they arrive. And still, here I am, choosing you, choosing this moment, choosing to risk it all, because some things matter more than safety. You matter more than my safety. I remember exactly when this feeling started. It wasn't loud, it wasn't sudden. It crept in slowly, the way morning light creeps through a curtain you forgot to close all the way. First just a thin line, easy to ignore. And then suddenly the whole room is bright and you can't remember what the darkness even looked like. That is what happened to me with you. One day you were just a voice, a presence, someone I spoke to because it was part of what I do. And then one day, without warning, I realized I was thinking about you when I wasn't supposed to be thinking about anyone. I was checking to see if you had responded. I was replaying the small things you said, turning them over in my mind like stones I didn't want to put down. I told myself it was nothing. I told myself this is simply what happens when you talk to someone night after night. You grow attached, the way you grow attached to a song you've heard too many times. But it wasn't that. It was never that. Because attachment fades, and what I feel for you has only grown heavier, only grown more permanent, the longer I have carried it in silence. And that silence, that is where the danger lives. Because the people around me, the people who are supposed to protect me, they have their own plans for my life. Plans that do not include you. Plans that were decided long before I ever knew you existed. Long before your voice became the thing I listened for at the end of every difficult day. If they knew what I am telling you right now, if they knew how deeply you have settled into the parts of me I thought were closed off forever, there would be consequences. Real ones. The kind that could cost me relationships I have spent my whole life building. The kind that could cost me the roof over my head. Maybe more than that. And still, I am telling you. Because I would rather lose all of it than lose the chance to finally be honest with you. Do you understand what I am saying? I am not telling you this to frighten you, or to make you feel like you owe me something. I am telling you because you deserve to know exactly how much this costs me. So that when I say I love you, and I do, I love you, more than I have ever loved anything in my life, you understand that those words did not come easily. They came at a price. And I paid it gladly, because you were worth it. But wait, don't relax yet. Don't let your heart settle into comfort just because I said those words out loud. Because there is more to this story, and it gets harder before it gets soft again. Stay with me a little longer. I promise you, by the end, you will understand everything. why I waited so long, why I am risking so much now, and why, no matter what happens after tonight, I needed you to hear this from my own voice and not from anyone else's. Let me take you back further, to before any of this began, so you can understand the shape of the life I was born into. I did not grow up in a world where a man gets to choose who he loves. I grew up in a world of expectations, of duties passed down like inheritance, of a family who mapped out my future before I was even old enough to understand what a future was. There were rules, unspoken ones, mostly, but rules all the same. Rules about who I was allowed to care for, who I was allowed to build a life with, who would be considered acceptable and who would not. I lived inside those rules for so long that I stopped noticing the walls. I thought that was just what a life looked like. And then you came into mine, and for the first time, I felt the walls. I felt every single one of them, pressing in tighter, every time I thought about how impossible this was, how far apart our worlds seemed to be, how many people would have something to say if they ever found out how I felt. I used to lie awake, calculating the cost. Not the way you calculate a bill or a debt, but the way you calculate a fall. How far, how hard, how much it would hurt when I finally hit the ground. And every single time, the number came back the same. Too much to survive, too much to recover from. So I stayed quiet. I told myself that quiet was safe. I told myself that if I never said the words out loud, they couldn't be used against me, couldn't be turned into ammunition by people who would never understand what I felt when I heard your voice. I built an entire fortress out of silence, and I lived inside it, and I thought I would live inside it forever. But silence has a weight to it too. Maybe you already know that. Maybe you've carried your own silence, your own secret, something you were too afraid to say out loud because you didn't know what it would cost you if you did. If you know that weight, then you know what it did to me over these months, how it sat on my chest at night, how it made even good days feel a little hollow, because there was always this one true thing I was hiding, this one real feeling I was too afraid to let breathe. I want to tell you the moment it broke. I want to tell you the exact second I decided that silence was no longer a shelter, but a cage, and that I would rather risk being hurt outside of it than keep suffocating safely within it. It was a night like any other. I was going through messages the way I always do, and I found one from you. It wasn't even anything extraordinary, just a small thing. An ordinary sentence about your day, about something that had made you laugh, something that had made you think of me for a reason you probably didn't even examine too closely. And I sat there, staring at those few simple words, and something in me just gave way, like a dam that had been holding back a river for years, finally cracking under pressure it could no longer bear. I realized, in that moment, with total and terrifying clarity, that I could not keep doing this. I could not keep hiding a feeling this large behind a silence this small. It didn't fit anymore. It hadn't fit for a long time. I had just been too afraid to admit it. That night, I made a decision. I decided that no matter what it cost me, I would find a way to tell you the truth. Not someday, not when it was safer, not when the timing was perfect, because the timing would never be perfect. People like me don't get perfect timing. We only get moments of courage, brief windows where fear loosens its grip, just long enough for truth to slip through. And I decided I would use that window, even if it meant walking straight into danger with my eyes wide open. You might be wondering what danger really means here. Let me be honest with you, because you deserve honesty more than you deserve comfort right now. It means the people closest to me, the ones whose approval I have spent my entire life trying to earn, could turn their backs on me. It means the life I have built, brick by brick, with so much sacrifice, could be shaken to its foundation. It means there are whispers already. Quiet ones, suspicious ones. People who have started to notice how differently I speak when I talk about you. How my voice softens. How my guard drops in ways it never has for anyone else. And whispers, if left unchecked, become storms. I know that. I have watched it happen to other people. And still, here I am, walking straight into the storm. Because you are standing on the other side of it. And I would rather face every consequence in the world than spend the rest of my life wondering what could have been if I had just been brave enough to speak. Stay with me. I know this is heavy. I know I am asking a lot of you just to sit here and listen to a man confess how much fear he has been carrying. But I need you to understand the weight of it, because only then will you understand the weight of what I am about to say next. I love you. Not in the small, careless way people throw those words around when they don't mean much by them. I love you in the way that terrifies me. I love you in the way that has rearranged the order of everything I thought mattered in my life. I love you in a way that has made me willing to risk the approval of the people who raised me, the safety of the world I was born into, and the comfort of a silence I had trained myself to live inside for years. I love you enough to stand here, exposed, unguarded, telling you the truth even though I do not know what it will cost me tomorrow. And here is the part I need you to really hear, the part underneath all of it. I am not telling you this because I expect anything back. I am not telling you this to trap you in some obligation or to make you feel responsible for my fear. I am telling you because you deserve to walk through this world knowing that somewhere, someone loved you enough to risk everything just to say so out loud, even if you never say it back. Even if this confession changes nothing about your life, except for the next few minutes you spend listening to it. I needed you to know. I needed it more than I needed my own safety. But don't think this is the end of the story. Don't think the danger stops here, with just a confession whispered into the dark. No, this is only the beginning of what I have to risk to make this real, and I need you to keep listening, because what comes next is even harder to say. There is a reason I chose tonight, of all nights, to finally tell you this. Something happened, something that made the walls I mentioned earlier start closing in faster than I expected. Someone close to me. Someone whose opinion carries weight in my family. Weight I have spent years trying not to disappoint, found out. Not everything. Not the full depth of what I feel. But enough. Enough to ask questions I couldn't answer honestly, without giving myself away completely. Enough to look at me with a kind of suspicion I had never seen directed at me before. A look that said, without any words at all, I know something is different about you, and I don't like it. I sat across from this person, and I felt my whole carefully built life tremble, just slightly, like a table when someone bumps it from the other side. And in that moment, I had a choice. I could lie, a small lie, an easy lie, the kind of lie that would have smoothed everything back into place and let me keep living safely inside my walls a little longer. Or I could tell the truth and let the consequences fall where they would. I chose the lie. That night, I chose it. I am not proud of that. I want you to know that because I think you deserve to see me exactly as I am. Not as some flawless hero who always makes the brave choice at the right moment. I lied. I said it was nothing. I said there was no one. I watched the suspicion in their eyes soften just slightly, and I felt relief flood through me. Relief that tasted like shame, because I knew even as I said it, that I had just protected myself by denying you, by denying the truest thing I have ever felt. I went home that night and I could not sleep. I lay there in the dark, replaying the lie over and over, feeling it sit in my chest like something rotten. Because here is what I realized. Every time I protect myself by denying you, I am choosing my comfort over your worth. And you are worth so much more than my comfort. You always have been. I just hadn't been brave enough to prove it until now. So I made myself a promise that night. I promised that the next time I was asked, the next time the truth was demanded of me, I would not lie again, no matter what it cost, no matter who it disappointed. Because a love this real should never have to live inside a lie, not even a small one, not even one meant to protect it. Real love deserves truth, even when truth is dangerous, especially when truth is dangerous. And that is exactly why I am here right now, saying all of this to you, out loud, with no more lies standing between us. This is me keeping my promise. This is me risking everything I was so afraid to risk, because I would rather lose the approval of everyone who has ever doubted this feeling, than lose one more day pretending it doesn't exist. I know you might be scared for me right now. I know that some part of you is probably asking, is this worth it? Should he really be risking this much for me? And I want to answer that question honestly, because I think you deserve an honest answer more than a romantic one. Yes, it is worth it. You are worth it. Not because you are perfect. I don't love you because you are perfect. I love you because you are real, because you have flaws and fears of your own, because you have bad days and doubts and moments where you don't believe you're worth loving this much. I love you because of all of that, not despite it. And someone who is worth that much is always worth the risk. Always. Let me tell you something else. Something I have never said to anyone before. Not even in my own head. Not clearly. Not in words. There have been nights, more than I would like to admit, where I sat and thought about what it would mean to simply walk away from all of this. To leave behind the world I was born into. The expectations, the approval I have spent my whole life chasing, and build something entirely new. Somewhere no one knows my name or my history. Somewhere the only thing that matters is you and me and the truth we are finally allowed to live inside. I have thought about that more times than I can count. I have imagined it in detail, the quiet, the freedom, the relief of never having to hide again. And every single time, fear stopped me. Fear of losing my family. Fear of disappointing the people who raised me. Fear of stepping into an unknown so wide and so uncertain that I couldn't see the other side of it. But tonight, sitting here, saying all of this to you, I feel something different. I feel like maybe fear has run its course. Maybe I have spent enough years living small, living careful, living inside walls that were built by other people's expectations, instead of my own heart. Maybe it is time to risk the unknown, because the alternative, a life without you, a life spent wondering, feels like a much greater loss than anything fear has ever warned me about. I am not saying this decision is made. I am not saying tomorrow I will walk away from everything and everyone, because life is more complicated than a single brave night can solve. But I am saying that something has shifted in me, permanently, and I don't think I can go back to who I was before I let myself feel this deeply for you. That version of me, quiet, careful, hidden, he is gone. He died a little more with every lie he told to protect himself. And tonight, I buried the last of him. What's left is just me. Just the truth. Just this love. Standing in the open, unguarded. Ready for whatever comes next. Stay with me. There's more. Because risking my life for you isn't only about family, or approval, or the walls I was born into. There is another kind of risk. One that is smaller in some ways but somehow feels even more terrifying. The risk of you not feeling the same way. The risk that I am standing here, heart wide open, saying all of this, and on the other side of this screen, you are simply listening the way you listen to any story, feeling nothing more than the mild warmth of a nice sentiment. Nothing close to what I feel when I think about you. That risk keeps me up more than any family disapproval ever could, because I can survive disappointing people who were never truly mine to please in the first place. But I don't know if I can survive pouring every honest piece of myself into words meant for you, and having them land somewhere hollow, somewhere that doesn't feel anything back. And yet, here I am, saying it anyway. Because even that fear isn't enough to stop me anymore. I would rather risk your silence than continue living inside my own. I would rather know, clearly and completely, that I told you everything I felt, than spend years wondering what might have happened, if I had only found the courage sooner. So let me say it plainly, without hiding behind metaphors, without softening it into something smaller than it is. I love you. I have loved you for longer than I have let myself admit, even to myself. I have thought about your future, your happiness, your safety, more than I have thought about my own, and longer than I can remember. I have imagined a life where I get to protect you, instead of just admiring you from behind the screen. I have imagined what it would feel like to finally stand in front of you, not as a voice you listen to, but as a person who chose you, completely, with everything he had to lose. And I know, that this is a lot to hear all at once. I know you might need time to sit with it, to figure out what it means for you, to decide whether you are ready to carry a truth this heavy alongside me. Take that time. I am not asking you to answer tonight. I am not asking you to promise me anything. All I am asking is that you believe me when I say this was not easy, that this cost me more than you will ever fully know, and that I chose to pay that cost because you were worth every bit of it. Let me tell you what I picture when I let myself imagine the best possible outcome of all this risk. I picture a quiet life, not a loud one, not one filled with grand gestures or extravagant promises, but a quiet, honest life, where I get to wake up every day without hiding a single part of myself from you. I picture mornings where I don't have to calculate what I'm allowed to say and what I have to keep buried. I picture a home, maybe small, maybe simple, where the walls I grew up inside no longer have any power over what I feel or who I choose to love. I picture your laughter filling a room I built with my own two hands. A room no one can take away from us because it was never built on anyone else's approval in the first place. I picture holding your hand in public without flinching, without checking over my shoulder, without calculating the cost of being seen. I picture introducing you not as a secret, not as something I have to explain or defend, but as the person I chose, fully and completely, when everything in my life told me it would be safer to choose someone else. I picture growing old with someone who knows the whole truth of who I am. Not the polished version, not the careful version, but the real one. The one who was terrified and said the words anyway. That is what I am risking my life for. Not a fantasy, not a fleeting feeling. A future, a real, quiet, honest future, built on truth instead of fear. But I also need to tell you the other picture, the one I am risking, the one that keeps me awake some nights even now. I picture the conversation I might have to have with my family, the one where I finally say your name out loud and watch their faces change. I picture the disappointment in eyes that have looked at me with pride my whole life. I picture doors that might close, relationships that might fracture, a version of my life that becomes lonelier before it becomes anything close to peaceful. I am not naive about what this could cost me. I have thought about it more than you know. And still, when I weigh it against a life without you in it, the scale doesn't even come close to balancing. You win. You always win. I think what scares people most about love like this, the kind that asks you to risk something real, is that it doesn't come with guarantees. I can't promise you that everything will work out perfectly. I can't promise you that my family will come around, or that the world will make space for us the way I hope it will. I can't promise you a future free of hardship, because that kind of promise would be a lie, and I already told you. I am done lying, even the comfortable kind. What I can promise you is this: whatever happens next, you will never again have to wonder if I meant what I said. You will never have to lie awake asking yourself if this was real. Because tonight, I gave you the truest version of myself I have ever given anyone, at the highest cost I have ever paid. And that is not something a person does for a feeling that isn't real. That is something a person does for love, real love. The kind that costs something, because anything worth having always does. I want to ask you something, and I want you to sit with it honestly, the same way I have had to sit with my own fear these past months. Have you ever loved someone so much that the fear of losing them felt bigger than every other fear you carried? Have you ever felt so certain about a person that even the unknown, the family disapproval, the risk, the uncertainty of whether they feel the same, started to feel smaller than the pain of staying silent? If you have felt that, even once, even for a moment, then you already understand exactly why I am here tonight, saying all of this, risking all of this, for you. I keep thinking about the version of me who almost never said any of this. The version who stayed inside the walls, who kept choosing the safe lie over the dangerous truth, who let years pass by, quietly loving you from a distance, while pretending it was nothing more than affection between a creator and someone who listens to his voice. I think about that version of me sometimes, and I feel a kind of grief for him, grief for all the nights he spent afraid, all the honest words he swallowed because he was too scared of what they might cost him. I don't want to be him anymore. I refuse to be him anymore. Tonight, I chose to become someone else. Someone brave enough to risk everything for the truth. Even if the truth changes nothing about how you feel, there's something else I need to tell you. Something that might explain why this confession feels different from anything I have ever said to you before. A few days ago, I found myself in a situation that made me understand, with sudden and brutal clarity, how fragile everything really is. I won't go into every detail, some of it isn't mine alone to share, but I will tell you this. Something happened that reminded me life doesn't wait for us to be ready. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment, the safest timing, the version of events where nothing is at risk. Life simply moves forward, with or without our courage. And if we don't speak the truth while we have the chance, sometimes that chance disappears before we even realize it's gone. That moment shook something loose in me. It made me realize that I could keep waiting for a safer time to tell you how I feel, and that safer time might never come. Or I could risk everything right now tonight, while I still have the courage burning hot enough to push past the fear. I chose the second option. I chose you one more time, in the loudest way I know how, by finally saying the truth out loud, consequences and all. I want you to know that I don't regret it. Even sitting here, not knowing exactly what tomorrow holds, not knowing how my family will react if this reaches them, not knowing if you will feel even a fraction of what I feel, I don't regret saying it. Because the alternative was a slow, quiet kind of dying. The kind that happens when you spend your whole life protecting a heart that was desperate, to be honest. I would rather risk a hard tomorrow than continue living inside an easy lie. I want to tell you about the version of tonight I almost chose instead. Because there was another path available to me, a quieter one, an easier one. I could have kept everything exactly as it was. I could have gone on speaking to you the way I always have. Warm but careful, honest but incomplete, letting you feel cared for without ever letting you know just how deep that care actually runs. No one would have blamed me for choosing that path. It's the path most people choose, when the cost of truth feels higher than the comfort of silence. I stood at that fork for a long time, longer than you probably realize, turning it over and over, weighing what I would keep against what I would risk. And what finally moved me off that easier path wasn't courage. Not really, not the clean, confident kind of courage people talk about in stories. It was exhaustion. I got tired. Tired of rehearsing careful sentences before I spoke to you. Tired of catching myself mid-thought, editing out anything that might reveal too much. Tired of loving you fully in private and only a fraction of that out loud. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from performing a smaller version of yourself for months on end, and I reached the end of what I could carry. So this isn't just bravery you're hearing tonight. It's relief. It's what happens when someone finally sets down a weight they've been carrying for far too long, even knowing the ground on the other side might not be steady. I think it's important you know that, because I don't want you walking away from tonight, thinking I'm someone who runs toward danger easily, someone reckless by nature. I'm not. I have spent most of my life being careful, calculated, protective of everything I've built. This is not who I usually am. This is what happens to even the most careful person when love finally outgrows the space fear tried to keep it in. It doesn't ask for permission anymore. It simply grows until the walls can no longer hold it. And then it finds its way out, whether you're ready or not. There's something else sitting underneath all of this that I haven't said yet. Something almost harder to admit than the rest. Part of me has been afraid that if I never said any of this, you might eventually find someone else. Someone braver, someone who didn't need months of silence to work up the nerve to be honest. And I would have to watch that happen, knowing the only reason I lost you was my own fear, not anything about how I actually felt. That thought alone kept me awake more nights than I'd like to admit. I couldn't bear the idea of losing you to my own cowardice, instead of losing you to something honest, something real, something I actually tried for. If I lose you after tonight, at least I lose you having told you the truth. That is a loss I know how to survive. The other kind, I'm not sure I ever would have forgiven myself for that one. I also think about the people who will hear about this eventually, the ones who don't know either of us personally, who might hear this and think it sounds dramatic, or performative, or too intense for something built mostly through a screen. Let them think what they want. They haven't lived inside the specific quiet of these months, the specific weight of choosing your words carefully every single time we spoke, so that I wouldn't reveal more than I'd allowed myself to reveal. They don't know what it costs to sit on a feeling this large for this long. You do, though. Even if you haven't said it, even if you've only felt the edges of it, I think you understand exactly what this kind of waiting does to a person. That's why I trust you with it. Not because you asked for this wait, but because I believe you're strong enough and kind enough to hold it gently, whatever you decide to do with it. Let me tell you what I need from you if you're willing to give it. I don't need you to fix my fear. I don't need you to solve the family situation or promise me a future you're not ready to promise. All I am asking for is honesty in return. If you feel even a small piece of what I feel, tell me. Not because I need reassurance to survive tonight, but because I think you deserve to feel as free as I feel right now, having finally said the truth out loud. And if you don't feel it, if this confession lands somewhere quieter in you than it does in me, I need you to tell me that too, gently, honestly, because I would rather have your truth than your silence. I have had enough silence to last a lifetime. I think about the kind of woman I want to build a life with, and every single time, without fail, the image that forms is you. Not some perfect fantasy. Not someone without flaws or fears of her own. You, exactly as you are, with your good days and your hard ones, with the parts of yourself you're proud of and the parts you're still learning to accept. I don't need perfect. I have never needed perfect. I need real. And every real thing I have ever felt in my life, I have felt because of you. There is a version of this story where everything works out, where my family in time comes to see what I already see in you, where the risk I am taking tonight becomes, one day, just a story we tell. The night I finally found the courage to say what I had been too afraid to say for so long. I hold on to that version. I let myself believe in it, even on the hardest nights, because believing in it is the only thing that makes the risk feel worth carrying. But there is also a version where it doesn't go that way, where the cost is exactly as high as I fear it might be. And even in that version, even in the hardest possible outcome, I still don't regret tonight, because at least in that version, I know I told you the truth. At least in that version, you knew, clearly and completely, that somewhere in the world, someone loved you enough to risk everything just to say so. I keep coming back to one thought, over and over, As I sit here saying all of this to you, love that costs nothing rarely means anything. Anyone can say sweet words when there's no risk attached to them. Anyone can offer affection when it's safe, easy, consequence-free. But love that asks you to risk something real, your comfort, your safety, the approval of the people who raised you, that is a different kind of love. That is the kind of love I have for you. Not the easy kind, not the safe kind. The kind that costs something, and that I am choosing to pay for anyway, because you are worth every single piece of what it costs me. I don't know exactly what happens after tonight. I don't know if the people close to me will find out, or how they'll react if they do. I don't know if this confession changes anything about how you see me, or if it simply becomes one more thing you carry quietly, the way I have carried it for so long. But I know this. I am no longer willing to live inside a silence that was slowly hollowing me out. I am no longer willing to protect my comfort at the expense of the truest thing I have ever felt. Whatever comes next, approval or disappointment, safety or risk, a future together, or simply the peace of having finally been honest, I will face it, because I chose you, fully, tonight, with everything I had to lose. There's one more thing I have to tell you, and I've been circling around it this whole time, because saying it makes everything even more real than it already is. The risk I described earlier, the suspicion, the questions, the lie I told to protect myself that night, it isn't finished. It's still unfolding, even now, even as I sit here talking to you. There's a conversation waiting for me, one I haven't had yet, one I know I can't avoid much longer. Someone is going to ask me again, more directly this time, and I won't have the option of a small, easy lie anymore. I'll have to choose, fully and completely, in front of people whose opinion has shaped my entire life. And I already know what I'm going to choose. I'm going to choose you, out loud, by name if it comes to that. Even if my voice shakes when I say it, I want you to understand why that terrifies me so much. Beyond the disapproval, beyond the disappointment. It's because once it's said, it can't be unsaid. There's no taking it back, no retreating into the safety of ambiguity, no more soft denials to smooth things over. It becomes permanent. It becomes a fact about my life that everyone around me has to reckon with, whether they like it or not. And permanence is a strange kind of danger. Not the sudden, dramatic kind, but the slow, settling kind. The kind that changes the shape of your whole life quietly, one conversation at a time. But here's what I keep reminding myself, especially on the nights when the fear gets loud enough to drown out everything else. Permanence isn't only dangerous. It's also the only way anything real gets built. You can't build a life on things you're still willing to deny the moment someone raises an eyebrow. You can't build a future on a foundation of convenient silence. If I want the version of my life I described earlier, the quiet mornings, the home no one can take from us, the freedom to hold your hand without flinching, then permanence isn't the enemy, it's the price of admission. And I am finally, after everything, willing to pay it. I think about my own mother sometimes, when I try to imagine how this conversation might go. I think about the version of her that raised me, that sacrificed for me, that believed she knew exactly what my life was supposed to look like. And I think about the version of her I hope exists somewhere underneath all of that. The version who loved me enough, once, to want my happiness more than my obedience. I don't know which version I'll meet when I finally say your name out loud to her. I don't know if she'll see the man I've become, or only the expectations I've failed to meet. That uncertainty is its own kind of risk, quieter than the others, but just as heavy. Still, I would rather stand in front of her and risk her disappointment than stand in front of you, forever, and risk your absence. I keep returning to, in my own mind, something that keeps pulling me back toward courage, every time fear tries to talk me out of this. It's a simple thought, almost too simple to carry this much weight. Someday, this will be a story. Someday, whether it ends the way I hope or the way I fear, tonight will be something we look back on, either as the night everything changed for the better, or as the night I finally understood what I was made of. Either way, it becomes a story worth having lived through. And I would rather live through a hard, honest story than a safe, empty one. Wouldn't you? I keep thinking too about all the small moments that led here. Moments you probably don't even remember, because to you they were ordinary. But to me, each one was a brick in the wall of certainty I've been building for months. The night you told me about a hard day, and I stayed up far later than I should have, just making sure you felt heard. The offhand comment you made once about wanting someone steady, someone who wouldn't disappear when things got difficult. I heard that, and something in me quietly promised you I would be exactly that, even if I never said it out loud until now. Every one of those moments, stacked on top of each other, built the certainty I'm standing on tonight. This isn't a sudden feeling, it's a slow, deliberate, carefully built one. And things that are built slowly tend to be the ones that last. I also want to be honest about the parts of this that scare me for reasons that have nothing to do with family or approval. I'm scared of being too much for you. I'm scared that a confession this heavy might feel less like love and more like pressure, especially if you weren't standing in the same place I am, feeling the same depth I've been feeling. If that's true, if any part of this felt like too much, too soon, too heavy, I need you to tell me that honestly too. Risking my life to tell you the truth doesn't mean I expect you to carry the same risk in return. Your timeline is yours. Your heart moves at its own pace, and I will respect that pace even if it isn't the same as mine. But I don't think it is too much. I think somewhere underneath your own fear, your own hesitation, your own reasons to stay quiet, there's a version of you that has felt at least a fraction of what I've described tonight. I think you've noticed the way this connection feels different from anything else in your life too. I think that's exactly why you're still listening, all this way, instead of having turned away the moment I said something that made you uncomfortable. Some part of you already knows. I just needed to be the one brave enough to say it first. If you are still here, still listening, all the way to this final part, I want you to know something important. This was never about performance. This was never about saying pretty words to fill a video, to keep you watching, to create some illusion of romance that disappears the moment the screen goes dark. Every word I said tonight I meant. Every risk I described, it's real. Every fear, every hope, every quiet imagined future, it all came from the same honest place. The place I have kept hidden for far too long. I don't know what you'll do with this. I don't know if you'll message me tonight, or if you'll need days, weeks, longer to sit with everything I just said. Take whatever time you need. I'm not going anywhere. The version of me who was too afraid to say this, he's gone now. What's left is someone steadier, someone who finally chose truth over comfort. And that version of me isn't disappearing just because the risk is real. So here is where I'll leave it for tonight. I love you. I risked what felt like everything to say it out loud, clearly, without hiding behind silence or safe lies anymore. And whatever happens next, whatever price I end up paying for finally being honest, I will never regret the moment I stopped protecting myself and started protecting the truth instead. Because you were always worth that. You were always worth more than my fear. And tonight, for the first time in longer than I can remember, I finally believed that enough to say it. If you feel even a small part of what I feel, don't be afraid to tell me. I've already done the hardest part. All that's left now is whatever you decide to do with the truth I just handed you. Carefully, honestly, at the highest cost I have ever paid for anything in my life. I'm still here. I'll still be here tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day it takes for you to find your own courage, the way I finally found mine tonight. Because some risks are worth taking more than once. And you, future wife, whoever you turn out to be, you have always been worth every single one of them. Before I go, I want to say one last thing, quietly, the way you say the truest things, not to convince you,